This is now Native American Heritage Month. It was not always Native American Heritage Month. How do we welcome our heroes, our saints, our worthiest ancestors, our gods? Better? Is that better?
Okay. Yeah.
Shall I start again? I asked that question because this is Native American Heritage Month, and because today is a particular day. We're coming up to the 100th anniversary of the signing of the armistice that signaled the end of the First World War, in which some 17 million people died. If you were watching BBC World News this morning, you saw the enormous event that this is in Europe, especially in Great Britain. This is Remembrance Sunday in England. Remembrance Day is still the 11th hour of the 11th day of the 11th month, and it is that for us as well. Since 1954, we have been calling it Veterans Day. No matter the name, however, this day is set aside to honor and thank those men and women who have served honorably in our armed forces in both war and peace times. While we remember the dead, we honor them most especially on Memorial Day, that is, the dead on Memorial Day. We are not referring to social justice warriors or civilian heroes and heroines, although one could argue that they too are veterans, because they certainly are. But they were experienced in other struggles. Most commonly, as we mark this occasion, we are referring to our own people, to people who look like us and sound like us and speak like us within our cultural norms. We are not recognizing the gallantry or service of our enemies. Today we do not, for example, celebrate Native American, North Korean, Viet Cong, Japanese, or German veterans who served their own nations. And Germany, which has been vanquished in 2 world wars, does not celebrate Armistice or Veterans Day. Instead, since 1952, it observes a National Day of Mourning. How amazing is that? It recognizes and publicly recognizes the mourning of the tragedies that happened. It's called Volkstrauertag, and it's on the Sunday closest to November 16. Perspectives and practices can, and sometimes do, change over time. Angela Merkel and Emmanuel Macron together paid tribute to that anniversary. They were described by a BBC commentator as the closest of European allies, which is amazing considering all the wars that have gone between those places. Their body language reflected their warm feelings for one another. They stood close together. They leaned toward each other. She pressed her head against his. That's a very significant gesture, isn't it? To touch foreheads with someone else. Would that it were so here in the so-called land of the free, which was once called Indian country. I get very annoyed, but it's just me, when a certain person who lives in a house that's being destroyed refers to Indian country. This was all Indian country, not just out there, all of it, and we are sitting in a place that was heavily Indian country. European intruders waged land wars against this continent's original settlers, broke promises to them, mocked their cultures, and rarely bothered to learn anything about what was sacred or otherwise important to them. Deported them via forced marches, starved and murdered those who got in their way, and seemed too ignorant or bothersome to accept as neighbors. Indeed, for many Europeans, especially in the first centuries of their exploration, native peoples were nothing more than animals and potential slaves. Did you know, for example, the Portuguese explorer Gaspar Corte Real stole 57 Indians and chained them together before boarding a ship to Europe, and that when the ship foundered, only 7 Indians survived the trip. Yeah, the rest were chained and went to the bottom of the sea. It's one of many stories we never hear because until very recently, Our Eurocentric history books have provided very little accurate information about the millions of people who lived here for thousands of years without ever seeing anyone who looked like any of us in this room. Isn't any wonder that many Native individuals, families, entire tribes, and groups of tribes retaliated against unending invasion? Wouldn't you? If you were home or confiscated? If you were forced to some other part of the world? Without anyone asking your permission or explaining why that was so, you were just forcibly removed. The impulse to fight for their lands against the intrusions of white strangers was a natural response. To crush them, the newcomers, the true outlanders, really, demonized them, played what we now call the victim card, and referred to them as savages and red men, even though there are no red Indians. That still makes me smile when I think about that. My daughter once said to me that I was not a white person. And I said, well, really, what am I? She said, you're a pink person. And look, today I'm wearing my collar. I'm a pink person today. She said this because in my family I have nieces and nephews who are African American and Latino American. The very mixed family I come from. And she asked me why black people were called black when she didn't know any black people. And I said, how would you describe your cousins? Well, coffee colored. And what about the ones from Ecuador? Café con leche? Something like that. Okay. Recently, we've heard bluster about not allowing children born here of non-citizens to be considered citizens. Is that not amazing? Surely the first people on this continent are the true birthright population. Would you not agree? Maybe you don't agree, but I'm asking. Surely they are the most native of us all. By native, I mean those born to ancestors who lived here for hundreds or thousands of years. Those who, in the words of Webster's dictionary, are indigenous as distinguished from invaders, explorers, colonists, etc. Alas, we know all too well that over the course of 400 years, the invaders won the land wars. They did their best to crush the natives, and they also made sure to exclude almost all Native Americans from citizenship when the 14th Amendment was approved in 1868. The only people eligible for citizenship, in fact, were still free white persons. Now those who had lived here for 2 years, no blacks, no women, and so on. It wasn't until 1925, long after they had been forced onto reservations and had no more access to weapons or power, that Indians, and I do not mean South Asian Indians, I mean North American Indians, could become citizens. Tragically, the white expansion from east to west and north to south initiated the destruction of a deeply spiritual way of life for hundreds of thousands of people and turned native reverence for the earth upside down. Unfortunately, the only way, and it's been marginal in its benefits, the only way that Americans could survive among the White Walkers has been to adopt their ways, to dress as white people do, to behave their way, to convert to Christianity, and so on. This is what one of the most famous Plains Indians, Oglala Sioux Holy Man, Black Elk, decided to do. It was a decision he came to in middle age when he married and became a father. That's his picture up there on the worship. Let me share with you some of what I've learned about Black Elk and his cousin Crazy Horse. You may know that name, Crazy Horse, famous warrior. Black Elk was not the warrior. Crazy Horse was certainly not crazy, unless you were thinking of him as crazy like a fox. Crazy Horse has become famous because of his exploits as a warrior at the Battle of the Little Big Horn, notorious battle, because of his resistance to white invasion, and because of his name. He is honored in the Black Hills with an immense monument that is still under construction. Some of you may have been there. Has anyone been there to the monument? Yes, Rich, did you have your hand up?
Oh, no, I was just scratching.
Okay. I have been there. It's an amazing, amazing statue. Black Elk Speaks was written in 1930 or so when Black Elk was in his 60s. It is a memoir of his first 30 years and reveals powerful visions that shaped him. These began when he was a child and stirred him to pray, not for himself, but for his people, whose destruction he feared was coming soon. As a witness to the Wounded Knee massacre, his fears were more than realized. Not only was he a Sioux mystic, he later became a Catholic catechist. I'm going to read you a little more about him. His most famous words, I think, in UU circles are, some of this is in singing Indian tradition, our great hymnal on Durbar. This is something from Black Elk. You have noticed that everything an Indian does is in a circle. And that is because the power of the world always works in circles, and everything tries to be round. The song that Linda chose for us about over the circle and around. The wind in its greatest power whirls. Birds make their nests in circles. The sun comes forth and goes down again in a circle. The moon does the same, and both are round. The life of a man is a circle from childhood to childhood, and so it is in everything where power moves. It's a profound thing to consider, isn't it? Native life is not linear. It is always circular and in seasons, cycle seasons. An interpretation of that, the world is not linear. Life is not linear. Our understanding is limited when it is linear. Native American wisdom always works in circles. Many people use the medicine wheel. Some of you may have dream catchers at your homes or on your porch. I support the American Indian College Fund, and I am sent prayer wheels all the time. Lots of feathers around my house and a lot of Native American accoutrements. Many people use the medicine wheel, which is a powerful teaching tool and way of understanding ourselves and our world. There are 4 directions: the north, the south, the east, the west. There are the 4 races: red, black, white, red, and yellow. All my relations moving together, and yet there are no red people. It's an old idea we have. There are 4 cycles of life: the baby or child, the youth, the adult, the elder who returns to be a child again. There are the 4 parts of our being that need care: the physical, the emotional, the mental, and the spiritual. All are interconnected. The universe is round. We come from the earth. It nourishes us, even in our mother's womb, and we return to the earth in one way or another at the end. I'm wondering how many of you, like me, are avid moon watchers and have been watching the supermoon for the last several days. I can't stay away from it. I go out on I have a porch in front of my house that looks right out where the moon rises. And every time there's a full moon, I'm on that porch worshiping a moon. I watch it go across the sky, and at 4 or 5 in the morning, when I look out the backside of my house, I see that the moon is still high and on its way down. I think the moon is one of God's best creations. Right? Now, more about Black Elk. He was born in December 1863. So as the Civil War was, getting underway, he was called a Cha-Cha Walk a medicine man, a holy man. He was a second cousin to the war leader Crazy Horse, and he fought with him at the Battle of Bighorn. He survived the Wounded Knee massacre in 1890, and he toured and performed in Europe as part of Buffalo Bill's Wild West. Some of you know about that. Buffalo Bill took all kinds of people from the United States, sort of paraded them in front of Europeans so that they could see the other people from this nation. He's best known for his interviews with the poet John Neihart, where he discussed his religious views, his visions, and events from his life. The first version of Black Elk Speaks, which was a book about him, was published in 1932. It's now been published in many different editions, most recently in 2008. He also spoke to an ethnologist for a book in 1947 called The Sacred Pipe, because you know, when you have seen a lot of films about Native American life, that passing a pipe around those in the circle is a very important bonding gesture. It's a communion of sorts for those in the circle. He converted to Catholicism, becoming a catechist. That means he worked with children and others who were considering converting to Catholicism. The Roman Catholic Diocese of Rapid City actually opened an official cause for his beatification within the Roman Catholic Church. I don't think this is well known at all. That was in 2016. His grandson, whose name is George Looks Twice, said he was comfortable praying with his pipe and his rosary. Rosary in one hand, pipe in the other. I love that idea. And participated in Mass and Lakota ceremonies on a regular basis. As I said, his visions began when he was a child, and there were massive visions about the universe and what was in it. When he was 9 years old, he was suddenly taken ill and reported lying down and being unresponsive for several days. During that time, he had a great vision in which he was visited by the thunder beings. Spirits were represented as kind and loving, full of years of wisdom. When he was 17, he told a medicine man named Black Road about the vision in detail. Black Road and other medicine men of the village were astonished by the greatness of this vision, especially in someone so young. Later in his life, he told John Nyhart, who was interviewing for the book, about that vision. He also envisioned a great tree that symbolized the life of earth and all people. Is that not amazing? In Norse mythology, the tree of life is extremely significant, taking you into the other world. And it's significant in other faiths as well. Think about the tree of knowledge, the tree of life and death. The tree appears in many different places. He described being taken to the center of the earth and to the central mountain of the earth. Joseph Campbell, a mythologist, some of you probably read his books or seen him on Channel 13 and other places, notes that the axis mundi, the central point of the world, is the pole around which all revolves in a circle, the point where stillness and movement are together. It's a theme in several other religions as well. Campbell viewed Black Elk's statement as one key to understanding worldwide religious myths and symbols in general. I'm going to skip to that one a little bit. Don't want to talk about it. He went to England with Buffalo Bill in 1887, so the Civil War is long over. The cavalry is still moving west, killing Indians, but Black Elk is safe because he's with Buffalo Bill. He described that to Nyhart, who wrote the book, and it appears in chapter 20 of Black Elk Speaks. I couldn't find my copy of the book. It's somewhere in my house of many books. He was asked to perform for Queen Victoria, who was referred to as Grandmother England. That's Grandmother England. He was among the crowd at her Golden Jubilee. Can you imagine what that's like, to be a Plains Indian from North and South Dakota area and suddenly be in a palace in London with an English queen? What an incredible distance, between you and so on. I was thinking about Queen Victoria recently because she supposedly, I tell you this because I did a service about it, responsible for the human practice of bringing cats inside. Queen Victoria apparently had many, many cats, and she had them inside her palaces. Until 150 years ago, cats were outdoor animals. They were predators working on farms and ranches, killing vermin, rodents, and all the rest of it. She brought them in. I know I asked you how many of you have black cats because I did a reading about black cats 2 weeks ago. Remember that? Now here's Black Elk. not a black cat, an elk. Who is in a palace, another palace, and that's Queen Victoria's Golden Jubilee. What an astonishing experience that was. Almost like when Pocahontas went to England and had to appear before royalty, dressed in European clothes, although she was not a European. In the spring of 1888, the Wild West show set sail back for the United States. Black Elk became separated from the group and the ship left without him. He was stranded with 3 other Lakota Indians. They subsequently joined another Wild West show, and he spent the next year touring Germany, France, Italy. When Buffalo Bill arrived in Paris in May of 1889, Black Elk obtained a ticket to return home to Pine Ridge. That's another place where there have been a lot of demonstrations in the last 20 years about the incursions of white people into that territory. During his sojourn in Europe, he was given an abundant opportunity to study the white man's way of life, and he learned to speak rudimentary English. Yes, when he went back to Pine Ridge, he became involved with followers of a movement called the Ghost Dance. Do any of you know about this? There's a dance created in a different part of the country, and it was to establish spirituality, recognize the spirituality of Native American life. And it was forbidden for a while by the U.S. government. No, you cannot be doing that dance. It's a rebellion dance, no. But he did it anyway. His final years, his conversion to Catholicism. How did that happen? Think about all the Native American schools that run across the western United States, especially in the north. I supported one of them for years. And I had a Save the Children Navajo child that I supported for many years as well. My family was very involved in Native American history and have lots of books about all of that. But Catholicism was the prevalent religion there, coming out of Canada and moving across the northern plains. And in order to survive, as I said earlier, many Indians converted to Catholicism. They felt safer being able to say that they were Catholic and baptized and confirmed real human beings because they were Christians. So he returned to his work. He organized, this is Black Elk, he organized an Indian show held at the Sitting Bull Crystal Cavern Dance Pavilion in the sacred Black Hills, where I've also traveled and spent a night under a full moon. Has anybody been to the Black Hills? Yes, Linda, any comments about what that was like?
So starkly beautiful.
Yes, it's like being on a lunar landscape. Really, really barren looking place. But under the sky, it's quite amazing. And that was where he was from. His first wife, Katie, had converted to Roman Catholicism, and they had their 3 children baptized as Catholics. After she died, Black Elk, who was then in his 40s, converted to Catholicism, and he was christened with the name Nicholas. Nicholas Black Elk became his name. The widower of Black Elk married again in 1905 to Anna Brings White. Isn't that an interesting name? Brings White. Anna Brings White. A widow with 2 daughters. Together they had 3 more children whom they also baptized as Catholic. He said his children had to live in this world, and that's why he did it. To live in the world that was there now, he had to convert. They lived together until her death in 1941. His son, Benjamin Black Elk, became known as the 5th face of Mount Rushmore, posing in the 1950s and 60s for tourists at the memorial. So if you wanted to take a snapshot of a real Oglala, he was there. I can't imagine what that's like, to be a display person for other people, to take pictures of you as souvenirs of who you were and what you might do. But Neihart had asked Black Elk why he put aside his old religion and baptized his children And Black Elk replied, "My children had to live in this world. To live, according to Black Elk, is one of the central prayers of Lakota spirituality." Black Elk mentions his prayer for life 19 times in another book about him called The Sacred Pipe. In her memoir, Hilda Neihart, the widow of John Neihart, the author, wrote that just before his death, Black Elk took his pipe and told his daughter, "Lucy looks twice. The only thing I really believe is the pipe religion." So there we are, with Black Elk speaking, Black Elk's thoughts. Does anyone have any comments or questions you'd like to share about any of this? I gather you haven't been in some of the places I have been in. Tell them.
I was just, as you were talking about Queen Victoria, I'm kind of amazed how, the Victorian age is considered a very staid and correct time. But Queen Victoria was very open in her day to many different races of people and really commingled a lot with them. She had an Indian servant who was very, very close to her. Once she was gone, they made sure they got rid of him. But she had a lot of, she absorbed a lot of different cultures, and she was very interested in that.
Someone over here. Barry, did you ask?
I just wanted to comment, when they were first pushing the Indigenous people west, one of the tribes, I don't remember which tribe it was, took legal action and went to the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court ruled that they couldn't push these people west.
Right.
And the president at that time, Andrew Jackson, said,
Yes.
"Let the Supreme Court enforce it."
Yeah. Andrew Jackson, not one of my heroes. Rich, you want to say something?
Yes, I had my readings about Lakota, but there are two things when you say the Native Americans. There's two things. One spiritualist said, when they poison the land and the air and the water, they're going to realize they cannot eat money. And the second one was, there was a myth, it's a story, about the wolves fighting. And the universe consists of two wolves, one the evil one and one the good one. And this grandfather was telling this story to his son, or grandson. And so it's a constant war. And then the grandson asked him, "Well, which wolf wins?" And he looked at him in the face and said, "The one you feed. The one you feed."
Anyone thinking of going to the Black Hills? Or to the gigantic Navajo Hopi Reservation in Arizona? It's the largest reservation in the United States. It's enormous, absolutely enormous.
Where's that statue or whatever you're talking about that you're still there?
It's at Mount Rushmore. The statue of Crazy Horse is being constructed. If you Google Crazy Horse statue, I'm sorry?
It's on the back side of the mountain, isn't it?
Oh.
Yeah, it's not up on Mount Rushmore, it's down below. It's a tribute to those who really lived there.
Yeah.
Those faces on Mount Rushmore never lived there. And as for Andrew Jackson, he was the president in charge of the forced migration west.
Trail of Tears.
And his
Trail of
face is on
Tears,
our
exactly.
$20 bill.
What was that?
His face is on our $20 bill.
It's still on our $20 bill.
In God we trust, and we got him on. I tell him that's the thing.
With the new
Go
White
20.
House. And
if you visit his house, the Hermitage in Tennessee, which I have also been to because I have a lot of family in Tennessee, you can see the slave quarters as well. Andrew Jackson was a very,
Now about her strains, slender silvery
Stay